It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor?
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Okay, there are a number of us, certainly, that, especially here in America, would tell you that the guy who really taught us, how to be a good neighbor was Fred Rogers. We say Zikron La'Levracha, that his memory should always bless us. Mr. Rogers taught that there are 3 ways to be a good neighbor. The first way is to be kind. And then the second way is to be kind. And then the third way is to be kind. And I came across this quote recently by this anonymous author. Honesty without kindness is brutality. Kindness without honesty is manipulation. So, as much as I love Fred and kindness and consider it the greatest wisdom, I turn to another authoritative source regarding how to be a good neighbor. State Farm. No. I'm referring, of course, to the Torah. Last week in the Torah, the Jewish people received the 10 Commandments. And God begins with the words, Anochi, I am. It's written above, on the top of our ark. And there is a discussion amongst the commentators as to whether this constitutes a declaration or a commandment. Rambam, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, known best as Maimonides, Sephardic Jewish philosopher, insists it's a commandment, a mitzvah, the belief in one God. Yeah. Arabanel, great sage, Spanish, disagrees. It's a preamble, making clear to the Israelites who was speaking to them. The Israelites had seen God's wonders in Egypt, but they had not, met God personally. They hadn't been formally introduced. Or, I don't know, most Israelites had not yet have got over for cocktails and a bite to eat. Think of it that way. And now at the moment of revelation, there is a voice which overawes them from the sky and creates the frame for every single thing that follows. The I of the opening of the 10 Commandments, right? How then does Revelation conclude? The last commandment concerns coveting, and the final words are, that belong to your neighbor. The first words of the 10 Commandments are, I am, and the last words are, your neighbor. And without analyzing all the commandments separately, we can understand something profound, tracing the notion from God to neighbor. It is the movement known to us in a very different sense, from the greatest generalities to the most particular or specific. Think of one of those shots of an opening of a movie, and you're far above the earth, and then finally you land at someone's kitchen table, right? We thought we were dwelling barakia all the way in the firmament, in the sky, in the expanse, and then all of a sudden, pitom, we find ourselves at the dinner table sitting next to God. You see, the sages claim that when 2 people sit together and they discuss words of Torah, that the divine presence rests between them. And when 3 people eat at one table and speak a little Torah, it is as though they have eaten from the table of God. The word "and" is important. It is expressed in Hebrew by a very simple letter, vav. It's a conjunction. It's a connecting word. Vav joins one thing with another. It's drawn as this little straight line, but all Hebrew letters began really as pictures. And they believe in this case that it really was a hook. Because in the Bible, Vav means not just and, but hook. It's an object that links two things together. And it's a simple letter. It's the number 6 letter in the Hebrew alphabet, but it packs a wallop. I mean, the medieval sage Moses Isserles taught that a Torah scroll should be written with the letter Vav every single column to remind us that Vav, connection, is the column in which our existence exists. It's like the pillar of our lives. So if you remember the first murder in the Torah, way back in Genesis, Cain kills his brother Abel. And the Torah says that when God sent Cain away to wander in the east, God placed a mark on his forehead. It doesn't tell us what the mark was. But Rashi, another great commentator, he says that God placed on Cain's forehead a letter from the divine name, Yud He Vav He. And the Midrash says it was the letter Vav. You know why? Because Cain was the one who, when God asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" answered, "Am I my brother's keeper?" So God placed this Vav on his forehead to remind him forever of the lesson that we are indeed our siblings' keepers. We are connected to them, and we are obligated to them, and we, in fact, are even responsible for their welfare. He was not off the hook. Thank you. Human beings say that the Torah was created on Yom Vav. Right? No, excuse me. Human beings says the Torah were created. So humans were created on day 6. That's the day of connection. It's the day which symbolizes like our bonds from one to another. Rabbi Jacob Schachter writes, already at the dawn of creation, the first human being was taught that the universe unfolds with him at the center, but it will never be about him alone. It will always be about him and another. Can we guess what letter appears in the Torah the most times? It's the Vav, the letter that hooks us together, that breaks this illusion of like human autonomy and self-sufficiency. Over and over, the Torah reminds us that we are defined by Vav, the mark of human relationship and conjunction. We belong to one another. Others depend on us, and we, in fact, depend on them. We usually think, of neighbors as people like who, live on our street, or maybe around the corner, or they're in our school district, or maybe in our zip code. But our greatest leaders have always called upon us to open our field of vision and expand the meaning of neighborhood. Like, we don't have to be nice and approachable only to the people that live on our street. We don't have to be quiet and considerate to the people just nearby. Good neighbors show respect for everyone, near and far, in person or on the web. Our lives, they're made possible often by a myriad of neighbors we forget are there. They're unseen. They labor for our sake. They weave the fabric of our society, and that helps sustain us. So in this week's Torah portion, Mishpatim, which Henry will chant tomorrow morning from this very spot, right, gives us a lot of the specifics about what it means to live with other people. It provides us rules. That's what Mishpatim means, rules for when we quarrel, what the punishments are when we fight. There's laws about property and liability and restitution and money lending. And they're all meant to teach us to interact with each other respectfully. We're told not to oppress our neighbors, do wrong to any strangers, also our neighbors, because we were strangers once in this land of Egypt. Rabbi Harold Schulweis of blessed memory points out that the Torah's greatest teaching that I spoke of earlier, this teaching of oneness, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, Hear, O Israel. The eternal is our God, the eternal alone. It sort of proclaims the unity of all life. It is followed directly by the letter of connection, Vav. And then, as Henry chanted, the Ve'ahavta, which teaches us to love. it was partly this instruction that gave birth to this community, Congregation Micah. It was a place founded humbly, really, on these principles of justice and equity and compassion and love. And all of it was to create a place that really Fred Rogers initially thought of, a place where we would all see each other as good neighbors. That's what I got. Shabbat shalom.